This is the proposed ecology trail. So it's a trail we've identified in Simsbury, Connecticut, that is right next to the Misako State Forest. And here we can kind of get a general idea of where it is located. It runs between the Two Hills School and the town forest baseball field. So it's right around this general area. And it's a relatively short trail, but it's great for the students because it provides access from the school to the fields, as well as it's a great place just for adults and anyone in general interested to getting outside into nature. Just it's a nice quick trail that gets you outside, which is most important out of everything. And so mostly this class focuses on nature and brain health. So we were trying to figure out ideas of how we could implement nature and brain health into a particular more useful way, which thus is the trail. So we wanted to kind of figure out different ways that we could make the trail more interactive for the students and anyone really in general without actually making a footprint on the trail. So we've come up with several proposed stations that would run along the trail, and they're all relatively simple and just kind of range from discussion points about interesting, facts as ranging from different trees along the trail. We've identified some birds that are in the area, and we have special recordings of those birds. So just simple things like that. And so it will all be linked to a website through a QR code, and it would have all the stations listed. So we'll get further into that. But before we get too far, I would like to say, so these are all just proposed ideas. Nothing is final as of now. These are just things that we would like to implement in the future if we were ever given the permission to do so. But first, we'll kind of discuss the website, and Donnie's going to go ahead and talk about that part.
Yeah, so one suggestion that we had was to have a QR code that people could scan on their phones when they're on the trail. And this QR code would lead them to a website that would go more into detail on each station. And this would kind of reduce the footprint we have on the actual trail. So whoever's on the trail can get access to all this information without any of it having to be there and impact on the trail. So one other idea that we had is having a possible sign for this trail. And so we had this idea of having making a sign using a wood burning tool. And so this trail is the route set up by the citizens and an Eagle Scout. And what's unique and interesting is the historical features, and there's so many opportunities to collect data over time. And so we wanted to kind of highlight this main information by having a sign, and the example down below is what we kind of wanted it to look like. So on this sign, potentially there could be the name, the length, and the distance of the different sites between the stations that we were referring to earlier. And so as Max was saying, there's a bunch of different stations that we hope to have highlighted on like the website. And so the first one is just kind of like the start of the trail. And so it will kind of, on the website, you'll be able to learn kind of more about the forest history. And so some facts about that is that the forest was originally purchased by the state in order to demonstrate the prevention of forest fires that were being caused from the nearby railroad. The area of the trail is now owned by the town of Simsbury and has become a main route for children to walk to a school and for people to enjoy a small trail. It connects to the West Mountain Road. And so an Eagle Scout made a permitted water crossing, enabling the children to be off-road all the way to school. Some more about this is that it really influences the environmental education. So one of the main goals for this trail is to promote environmental education for all ages. So we, as a group, are trying to make sure that the trail is interactive for children of all ages, not just one age group. So we've been brainstorming different ways to kind of tie in, the older kids and also the younger kids, and think of different activities for that. And so this trail will allow them to interact and learn about the history and the nature that surrounds their school and community, which is really important. And so the class that I'm in is nature and brain health. And so we kind of wanted to make sure this influenced the trail as well. And so we wanted to make sure that there is a connection between the exposure to nature and improvements in brain health. And so this trail will allow students to visit and learn about this area and collect ongoing data. So the goal for this is to positively impact their mental health as well as education and be a long-term resource for the community. So another idea we have is getting different recordings of some of the birds in the area. And so we wanted to include recordings of the dawn songs from birds in the Massaco State Forest, as well as recording of big brown bats, which are native to the area. We wanted to put the recordings on the website. And so this will, of course, highlight the amazing diversity of species at a time when most people are not in the forest. So here are some examples of the birds that you can find around in this trail. And so hopefully connecting these sounds to the website will kind of, again, build the interactive experience between people who visit the trail and the nature around them.
All right, so here you can see there's a little research plot, which is essentially next to the trail. So Professor Messino and some of her colleagues have been collecting data from several plots of land in the forest that are located near the ecology trail. So I think we would just want to identify this particular plot. And once again, ideally we would have a QR code or something that links so that you're able to follow all these different stations along the trail with your phone and not, impact the trail too much. So we would want to identify that research plot and just give some information about the area in order for students to kind of learn about how data can be collected, right next to your house. Essentially, these are kids who are living down the street, so it's important that they know that they can interact with the environment around them more than just playing baseball. But there's a lot more going on in that area than they might realize. So it'd be important just to kind of highlight the research plot and what exactly Professor Messino is working on in that area. Let's see. So, and then another example of just kind of the information that we'd want to convey is the, historic trees that are in the area. So one section we would have, and of course there are black oak trees along the trail. So this section would discuss the history and importance of black oak trees in the state of Connecticut and discuss some of the facts such as it's the largest known tree of its species in the country. And it, also role it plays in absorbing CO2 in the atmosphere. And, fun stuff as well, like the bark looks like an alligator skin. So those are the kind of things that would be informative, but also kind of interactive for the kids so they could, touch the tree and see how it feels and, looks like alligator skin. So just kind of interesting facts like that to keep mentioning along the trail. And so we also identified the musclewood tree. I believe, this is an actual photo on the trail. So it would just be another tree that we want to identify and just kind of simple facts like it's 12 to 15 feet in height. And kind of like the other tree, the black oak tree, this trunk is usually crooked and his bark is tight and rigid. So same like the other tree, we'd want kids to be able to kind of inspect the tree and see how it has this kind of, it has this bicep type and muscle wood and it's strong. So just that kind of thing to keep the kids thinking and, learning as they're having fun. And so we've also identified a stone wall along the trail. So as I've said to the other stations, it would just have some simple information. And so although the wall is overturned, it is clear to see it was used as a marker and could date all the way back to the 19th century. While there's not much remaining, the wall represents a piece of cultural history and shows how humans have been present and involved in the forest in the past. So we don't actually have any concrete information on the tree, but it would help to kind of spark some thought within the kids, wondering, where exactly this wall came from and know that there is a lot of history along the trail as well.
Hey, Max.
Yes.
This is awesome. I really appreciate you sharing this with us. I don't live too far away. My daughter goes to Tooten Hill. She's in 4th grade. And we've walked this trail many times. And I'm just overwhelmed by the fact that there's so much that we haven't seen, even though we've walked on this ground so many times. I'll just ask, just in the interest of time, that you wrap up in just a couple of minutes, but please don't take this as a a lack of interest in the idea. It's really cool. And I'm really glad you're focusing on Simsbury.
Yeah, perfect timing. This is actually the last slide anyway. So this is our old QR code. We've been working on this project for a little bit, so it's been updated a few times. But this is just an example of something we'd like to have, maybe on the proposed sign, just so people can find it easily and then go along the trail. So this example right here would lead you to the website, and then you could from there go through the stations and just, as we've noted, just identify the different stations along the trail in an interactive and fun kind of way, just to get the students thinking. And, as you said, anyone really who's just been on the trail and not realized all the different kind of points that could be identified along the way. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Everyone, thank you for your time. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them now, but I thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both. We don't typically do questions with public audience, but I'm really intrigued by this. I just wanted to see if any members of Open Space had any quick questions.
Just welcome. This is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. If there is assistance that is needed, I don't know exactly what permissions would be needed in order to construct signage or the QR codes, but your professor knows me, and we can figure out who the right people are in town government to navigate the process.
Thank you
Nice
so
to
much.
meet you. Nice to meet you both. All right. Was there any feedback on the minutes from October 6th?
I have just an informational question before we vote to approve. Marjorie, you had asked in the meeting a question about Meadowwood. Do you recall? It's in the minutes about how the town would know how to maintain it. And Tom Taberski responded, quote, mow Meadowwood once a year until told something different. And I was wondering if, Marjorie, if you had any further thoughts on that, and when would that kind of maintenance come on the calendar for us?
No, I remember asking the question as to how it was going to be maintained. I was hoping to, I don't know if we really discussed it sort of, I think we're going to have, I was under the impression we were going to have a committee formed to look at some of these issues. So that was my impression at the meeting or before the meeting.
So then to Tom goes the question, is there or Maria, either or, is there a model that you follow as to how you put certain properties into the sequence of maintenance? And
Sure.
do you have any thoughts for this season at least?
So I agree with Marjorie, and I think we probably had some side conversations about this. I do think there would probably be best a subcommittee of the Open Space Committee, kind of like a master, to kind of go with a master plan kind of thing. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? Where should trails go? That kind of thing. Parking areas, signage, even naming the property. I'm not sure, that may be something the town would want to look at. But in the short term, like the area on Firetown Road behind the remaining tobacco barns on Firetown Road, that, I know Tom Hazel and this committee's been working on an RFP for farming. If no one takes that next year, that's something we would treat, my thinking is, in the short term, like the triangle, where we mow it. We're mowing it once a year after the first frost. I know there's been talk about waiting till the spring. I've talked to the person that we use as a contractor for that work. He does have a lot of concerns, as do we, about waiting till the spring and getting tractors stuck and things like that. I think the compromise at the first frost, similar to what we're going to do with the triangle this week or next, is to continue to do it in that manner until we have a more of a concrete plan or working it out. But that's what I'm thinking. I'm hoping that the Hoskins Road site will be farmed next year as it was this year, and that farmer will take care of the maintenance of the visible part of the property from Hoskins Road. But again, the Firetown Road, I'm not sure if that's going to be farmed or not. But if it's not, it's going to be treated as a meadow in the short term, just like we do the triangle. Maria, I don't know if you like.
And
Okay.
Tom, I welcome those discussions, because another alternative is just to mow half the field alternate years. So in the fall, because the only reason you mow is to keep down the woody plants. You can do that every other year. That might
Yeah, those sprung up pretty quickly this year, though. I mean, we did mow it down last fall, and we've gotten actually a lot of complaints from not complaints, feedback from the abutters or neighbors who walk by it every day, especially the triangle this year, just saying how quickly some of those woody species have sprung up, and wondering when we're going to mow it. I mean, I was out there today actually, and it's not just like the waist high plants anymore, or waist high grass. There's quite a few what I would call brush over there now that we may want to that we've been keeping an eye on it. And again, I think I know there's some talk about having the triangle farmed as well, or at least a piece of it farmed, and that may change our plans as to what we're doing over there. But but in the short term, I think we're just going to my thinking is we'll treat it as a meadow until told differently.
So we look forward to those discussions.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for allowing me the time. Thank you. I understand what's going on.
Good. Was there any other feedback on the minutes? Okay, then they will stand. I'll move on to item 3, which is the opportunity to participate in a research program involving bobcats. And who am I turning this over to? Is that you, Tom?
Yeah, I'll be happy to speak on that.
Right.
So the UConn, and I'm going to draw a blank on what department at UConn, but UConn is working with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection on this is year 3, I believe, 3 or 4 of a bobcat study. And what they're doing is they'll trap a number of bobcats annually this time of year through early winter. They trap, they take some measurements. They anesthetize, take some measurements, put a collar on the bobcat, and then release it. And they do their research study. The collars fall off after a year. They've approached the town and some towns around us, Avon, Canton, Farmington, and Simsbury this year. They're kind of expanding out and would like to use some of the town's open spaces and some private properties to continue their research. They wouldn't be starting here in Simsbury till early December, maybe mid-December. They're working in Hartford, Windsor, Bloomfield, and West Hartford at this point. But they do check the traps daily. In some places they have cameras that are monitoring the traps. Any animal that is not a bobcat is released right away. But they're using the have a heart traps. They're very humane. And again, they'll be monitored daily. And, we believe it's a good, we do have a number of bobcats here around Simsbury Farms and as seen on some of our other parcels. And we think it's a worthwhile project to let them continue here in Simsbury.
Yeah, we wanted to see if there were questions or any concerns from this committee. This is an item that we expect to come to the Board of Selectmen next week, and we wanted to get input from this group in case there were concerns.
My understanding is that this is the final year of this project based on the information we've seen from the state. So,
if this is the final year, Tom, and how many years have they been doing it? 3?
The literature they sent us indicated that it started in 2017. I believe they started trapping in 2018.
So do they have at least some information as to the increase in the population in that time?
Yeah, that's what they're looking at is they're looking for the habitats that they're using, the habitats where the bobcats are living, their movement patterns, obviously with the tracking, what they're eating. They do have a program where if you spot a bobcat that's been killed on the road through an accident, they do ask that you call the DEP. They come pick it up, and they do look at the stomach contents to see what it's been eating and that kind of thing. But I'm not aware from what we've looked up of any problems with this program. It seems very well run. They're very, very organized. And they have identified what properties in Simsbury. It's kind of all over the place, but they've already gotten permission from West Hartford, Farmington, Canton, and West Hartford, I think is the other town. They've out of the four towns they want to expand to, we're the only ones that haven't given them permission yet, formal permission yet. So, and again, they may if they trap enough bobcats in the 4 core towns, they may not move out here. It's it's kind of where where the bobcats are found. If they don't find enough in their core towns, they'll move out to the suburbs, further out into the suburbs.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom? Okay. Thanks, Tom. And
You're welcome.
the next item is the recommended PA 490 criteria. I didn't know if I should turn that over to you, Tom, or perhaps a member of the work group.
Excuse me. Yeah, we've been the workshop was presented from Francine a criteria that kind of fits the PA 490 for open space through the assessors program. We were definitely. I'll give a little backtrack. Francine joined us a little bit late due to some Zoom issues, and we were kind of going off into left field a little bit and getting, a little hands-on with it. And then Francine was very nice to join in and clarify what the PA 490 for open space program was, and gave us a good grasp on the qualifications and how that gets tax relief to certain qualifying property owners. And I couldn't do it any justice. So if Francine's ready, I think if she gives us a brief synopsis of how the program works, the committee will see how it kind of incorporates and gets some possible open space preserved for periods of time, depending on the landowner. Francine, I'll hand it over to you on that because you do a much better job of explaining it than I could ever do.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Tom. Hello, everybody. Sorry, my picture is not there. Having issues with that now.
No worries. Hi, Francine.
Hello. So the reason that this was all brought up originally also is that we do currently have some parcels that are receiving that benefit. However, it was discovered that nothing was actually approved. And we need some guidelines, we need some criterias that are approved and enacted in order for the assessor to approve any property owners coming forward and wanting to take advantage of this. And how this works, it's part of the Public Act 490, which includes farmland, forest classifications, and so on. And the open space classification part of it is by ordinance only, as opposed to the farm and the forest classifications, which we do have criteria set by the state, and we do have to approve those if they qualify. So open space classification, the town needs to have some criterias and an approval process. And once a property qualifies for it, then they they are actually assessed, taxed on the use as opposed to what the property is, excess acreage or whatever. So it's a reduction in the assessment and therefore a reduction in taxes. They are, once they place the property in that classifications, once they are approved, they're under a 10-year penalty period. What that means is if they sell the property within the 10-year period, there's a penalty. And each year the penalty goes down. If they split the property and sell a portion, that portion is penalized. Whatever change in use they do is penalized. Once the 10-year penalty period is gone, is over, they still have the benefit of that assessment reduction based on the classifications, and there is no penalty. If they sell it after that period, it just gets declassified. The new owner then would have to reclassify if they choose to, go that route. So as the assessor, what I was looking to get in order to be able to approve anybody that would like to, it needs to also be reflected in the plan of conservation and development. At this point, there is nothing. I mean, we came up with some criterias, such as, perhaps the parcel would need to be twice the size in the zone that they are in. So for instance, if they are in a R40 zone, which is 40,000 square foot, they would need to have at least, an 80,000 square foot piece of property to prevent it from being split and sold off to then be, built upon. They could benefit that, portion to be placed in open space. So that is one of them. So the property owner would come to the assessor's office, would come to verify if their property qualifies. So the first guideline would be, is the property size big enough? Well, first of all, it would be to verify on the POCD if that parcel is within an area that has been approved for that classification, first of all. Then the second criteria, is the size sufficient? Does that qualify? And so on. And then it would be classified. So I don't know if I went over everything. If there's any
Hey,
questions.
Francine, this is Bill Rice from the Planning Commission. You just mentioned the Plan of Conservation and Development as being part of the guidance for this PA 490. Could you repeat that again? It's almost like you meant that there's some type of classification included in the POCD.
There's talk about it in the POCD. However, there is no approval process.
Right, yeah, right.
Based on the statute, once it is approved as an ordinance by the town, the directive is to have it identified on the POCD. So that would be one of the items that would need to later on be approved in there.
Okay. Yeah, we certainly mention it, but yeah, it is a little, lacking detail. But the POCD is not, not an ordinance or anything. So we'd really have to be careful about how we include it in the POCD.
Yeah. So at this point in time, if this were to be approved in the criteria that I had set,
yeah,
then based on currently, no properties would really qualify because they're not depicted on the POCD. Unless there would be some other language. I mean, would the town want, any properties within the entire town if they have double the size of the lot requirements to qualify? I mean, that's another option, but that wording would need to be placed in there. Then there would be no actual designated areas in town, but just the criteria that they need to have at least twice the size of the zoned lot size in order to qualify. That's a possibility too. Then that's, but that wording would later on be, added to the POCD. I don't know if I was clear on that.
No, I understand, but the POCD is not a legislative document. So
no, it's just that the state directs. That's the way the statute reads. That it needs to have some. We're directed to go and verify. What based on the Plan of Conservation and Development. What is it in an area that qualifies? That's been approved for that. Huh. So if it's town-wide, then there is no specific area in town other than the size requirement that we would put in the criterias.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, when we discussed this at the Planning Commission, I don't think there was, at least I didn't think that the Planning Commission via the POCD would be identifying certain regions where PA 490 could be applied.
Mm-hmm.
I guess our thought was that there'd be a, whatever legislative document be developed and approved, and then that's how it would be administered.
Mm-hmm. So then,
but if it's part of the state regulation or the state legislation. Okay, I'll take a look at it and see how it could impact our POCD.
It directs us to the POCD to, so there needs to be something in there, some language or.
All right, I'll take a look at it.
And just for guidance for the open space committee, what our role in all of this is to understand that there is this avenue for the PA 490 for open space criteria. And what we would do is, as Francine has started mentioning her criteria, we would hear Francine's ask her questions, and if we would want to, we could give Francine a positive referral from our commission. We don't have any jurisdiction over the PA 490. It's a state-run program. The legislature puts into the rules and guidelines, and it's implemented by the assessor's office. So in the grand scheme of things, for us to focus on is Francine's criteria, the agreement that the criteria are sound and that the open space committee sees it as a benefit to the town to offer this to the residents of the town if their lots meet those criteria, just to keep your focus where you need to be. I just wanted to mention that.
So Tom, the assessor's office will come up with the policy?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Francine, you can mention.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to add, it's just my recommendation of what, guidelines based on other towns and having
Right.
dealt
So, Francine,
with it.
you'll make a recommendation, but who in town makes the ordinance or the regulation?
Mm-hmm. So the town needs to adopt to.
But is it is it an ordinance or a zoning regulation?
Francine,
Yeah.
if you want. So
Go
Bob
ahead.
had advised that ultimately the Board of Selectmen would essentially need to do some sort of policy resolution accepting the criteria. That was sort of one of the key pieces that's always been missing from our PA 490 program. So they would, my understanding from Bob is that they would sort of be the last stop on this journey of review.
Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I did attend that workshop on the PA 490, which is farms, forest, open space, and also there's a marine designation, which unfortunately we're not on the shoreline here, so we don't have any marine stuff. But there are, a number of towns that have this open space designation and have a policy or whatever ordinance, or I don't know what the document is exactly called. So it's, I think we're modeling, kind of looking at other towns about what they're doing just to try and get this straightened out, because there are people under it right now, but we don't have the documentation in place, I think is the basic issue.
So Francine, would you think that the current properties that have this designation would have to reapply? Or you're gonna
Yes,
grandfather them?
I would.
Okay.
We would send them an application
Okay.
based on the guidelines that would be
Approved by the
established.
town somehow.
Exactly.
And Francine, how many properties do we have in town that qualify into this PA?
Well, we currently have a dozen properties that have that use assessment. However, they would not all qualify based on the original open space plan that I was reviewing, unfortunately. So that's where I need that guidance. To be able to determine, who qualifies and who does not.
So do we have any additional questions or concerns, or do we want to send a positive referral at this point? Are we ready for making that?
So I'll ask a question quickly,
Yeah.
just to make sure I understand it. Our charge as a group is to simply make a recommendation that this policy as written is then forwarded for adoption. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, we're an advisory committee. We don't have any skin in the game. We're just looking at the criteria presented from the assessor's office in order to say, this sounds like a good plan. We agree with the plan that this is a benefit to the town. And as it goes through the process, she can present the fact that the Open Space Committee sees the preservation under PA 490 of certain properties for open space assessment reductions is a good policy.
And is it okay if we so desired to add a caveat in there that says, oh, by the way, if I'm hearing this right, and I may not have heard it right, that it might be good to have a workflow in place so that these determinations can be made? Or is that?
We don't have authority to make determinations. That would be part of the policy, and the assessor's office would have to assess that it meets all the qualifications. They're kind of the driver of the program. They're just presenting to us to say, hey, look, this has to do with open space. We'd like to preserve more open space for these criteria. Does the Open Space Committee like this idea? And that kind of gives a little weight behind the motion moving into the Board of Selectmen that, like, we've reviewed it.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, ultimately it's to not enforce, but to help preserve and conserve more properties for development, to assist the homeowner in keeping those larger pieces of property that are as taxes go up, that they're not obligated to sell off for that reason. That this enables them to conserve, to keep it. They're not a farming, they're not in forest classification.
Gotcha. And I promise this is my last question on this, but so did I hear this correctly? There is a workflow in place? I know it's not our purview, but is there a workflow in place? Can you elaborate or what you mean by workflow? Yeah, if I heard you right, Francine, it sounded like there was some ambiguity in the determination steps, and maybe I was petting my dog and not paying good enough attention.
The town does not currently have any adopted approval process. It has not enacted this open space, and that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. Okay.
All right. So is the open space ready to make a recommendation that we adopt this policy?
I move that.
Am I a voting member of this committee?
Yes, Bill, you are.
Okay. So, okay. I'll wait for discussion.
Okay, so we have do we have a second?
I think Helen seconded.
Oh, second. All right. So I didn't hear that. So discussion, Bill.
Yeah. So did Francine make a proposal?
Yes.
Was it in the packet or is it written down? I didn't see it in the packet.
It was included. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me take a quick look at it.
It'll be right after the minutes in the packet.
So I'm throwing this out there while Bill's quick reading. I didn't see anything that was quantitative in that packet. And it was great. It was well written. It was really nicely done. And I quickly referred to the POCD while we were chatting. Is it on page 4? Did I miss it? Okay. No worries.
Oh, I see. It was sandwiched in between. Sorry, I missed it. Okay. All this. Okay, so there's a reference to the open space plan. Geez, I can't even remember. Do I have an open space plan in the POCD?
Not according to the table of contents.
That'd be under preserve open space?
Yeah, the area that it references is
Page 54 of the POCD has
Ye-
reference.
It's section 7, I believe, if my brain works for me today.
Maintain and enhance community character.
Yes. Letter C, undeveloped lands, I believe.
Yeah, page
Page
54, if you're looking at the POCD.
That's
I'm actually at work. I don't have my POCD with me at home, but I'm going to open it up here.
If you'd
Unless
like me to,
unless someone can.
I could read it to you.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom, please.
Okay. Section C, undeveloped land, Simsbury will. It says 1, continue to use the PA 490 assessment reduction program, Connecticut General Statute 12-107, to help preserve undeveloped land as long as possible. And then in red is A, review the criteria of PA 490, quote unquote, open space assessment category to evaluate whether to extend incentives to residentially zoned parcels less than 25 acres in size. And I think what Francine is doing is adding a little more criteria to that less than 25 acres in size, trying to narrow down some of what qualifies and what doesn't and how it qualifies.
Yeah, that's the only wording that's in here.
Yeah, and the red is basically for review and future establishment, I believe.
Yeah, and who's is there someone assigned to that, Tom?
The leader is town. Partners are the Board of Selectmen and Planning Committee. And leader is that is for the what's written in black, and then what's written as red is leader is town. And then below that, oh my God, red on white, my eyes.
It says code legend is on the inside back cover.
Yeah, sorry. Just wanted to make
Okay,
sure.
I guess the issue that I have is there is no open space plan in the POCD. Now, Francine, is that what you were talking about earlier about?
Yes.
We would have to change the POCD.
Later on, yes, it would have to be included in there at some point. That's part of the directive from the statute. However, I believe, and Maria, you can talk about that, what Attorney DiCrescenzo had mentioned. There might be a way to enact it for those that are already receiving classifications, and then later on it be enacted in POCD to be able to qualify future owners. That's the part that I'm a little.
I have a concern that developing an open space plan and then including it in the POCD. Theoretically, it's possible, but developing an open space plan that's a serious undertaking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why the criteria that I have written down double the size of the buildable lot. Yeah. So you wouldn't, in order to preserve to prevent or not prevent, but to help the owner from having to split off their lot to save on taxes, yeah, by enacting this in using the wording double the size of the zoning, because you wouldn't be able to split off a lot if it had less than the required zone size for a buildable lot, correct? Mm-hmm. As far as I know. So that's why I'm recommending that you use at least double the size in that zoned area, within the zoned area. But again, that's my recommendation. I mean, yeah, it could be anything else. It could be parcels that are greater than 25 acres, a lot of towns, in order to help out. Again, they have sections of towns that are depicted that could qualify as long as they, meet the other requirements based on size, yeah, that is going to be approved as one of the conditions.
Would this apply to a total parcel?
It would have to be.
Because I'm thinking of one parcel in town that I believe is 26 acres, and it currently has been approved for PA 490 for a portion of the parcel.
But for under what qualifications, though?
Yeah, well, there were none, right, Francine? We don't have any. Somebody went into the previous assessor and said, I have a big lot. I only have a house on one part of it. I'd like to have the other part qualify under PA 490, reduce my taxes, and it was agreed to.
Okay. Now, if they had more than 25 acres and it was forested, it may have been approved that way. If forester qualified it, it has to meet the criteria for forestry. They have to have at least 25 acres. And in that case, they could have separate parcels where, they have at least 10 acres on one piece that qualifies for forest and another 15 that's not even contiguous that also qualifies as forest, that has been classified by a forester. That would make up the 25 acres. In this case here for open space, it would have to be one lot. It couldn't be two lots side by side separate. They would have to be one parcel that would have to be at least double the size of the required minimum lot size for a buildable lot.
And if I read,
but I see what you're saying. Yes, go ahead.
3B says such other land as is actually covered by structure. So I guess I have to read this more closely. Sorry.
Again, this is it could be modified. I mean, this is criteria that I came upon. Too. I mean, other points could be added. Industrial zone is not eligible. Whatever. That's why usually it's depicted on the POCD, and industrial would not be included in there. I mean, it would actually be highlighted which part of town could potentially qualify based on the criteria that are being established.
Okay, I think Susan, you had a question?
I was just going to respond to Bill's question. So definitely the building envelope and all that is excluded. And then if you do develop it during the 10-year period, there's a clawback on the any tax relief that you receive during that time.
Yep.
So just to clarify that.
So I want to applaud Francine for taking this first step because when this subject came up on the planning commission, we all kind of scratched our heads and said, because it's been, I don't know if it was a referral or somehow it came to our commission a few months ago. And I think, Francine, it was based on, your revelation that there was no guidance on how to apply the Public Act in Simsbury. And we kind of just punted it and said, well, it's not the planning commission's purview to write legislation.
In that same concept, I think what the Open Space Commission is looking at here is the conceptual aspect of this. We're not getting in the weeds on the details. I think we're looking at a conceptual aspect of the fact that, is this a good idea, or is this something that probably should be not done? But I think from what Francine says, this is a part of the state legislation that is adopted and many other. But I think, the great details will be ironed out as it moves down the road. I don't believe the Open Space Committee has a greater reach or authority that between Bob D and the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Commission will probably be the ones to iron out a lot of these details as far as the criteria for that.
Well, I definitely, I can't remember what the motion was. But
Susan, do you want to restate?
I thought it was just a positive, sending it on positive to something, sending it on
Board
to
of Selectmen,
fanning or planning, I think.
or Board of Selectmen, I think.
Can we amend it to say that, we agree in concept and that details need to be developed?
I think, Bill, you have a good point. And as well, I think we're making a positive referral to the assessor's office because she's moving this through the process.
Yes.
We're not necessarily referring it to anybody else. This is her thing to move through the process. And we're just saying this sounds like a good concept. And I agree with you, Bill, on the conceptual language in there.
All right, Susan, since you made the motion, do you accept those additions?
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
Helen, are you seconded? Do you second that with the amendment?
You're asking me if I'm giving
If
you.
you second those additions, yeah.
Yes.
All right, no further discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, all right, so we will send that on to the powers that be. All right, good, thank you.
Thank you.
And the next item on discussion is the criteria for acquisition of open space. And Susan, I know you had made some changes to it. Helen and Susan had some concerns about the first paragraph. Susan, do you want to say what you would suggest?
You're asking me that I cannot
Susan.
look at the document. Okay, Susan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so I just, looking back at my email that I had sent about this, so I tried to basically make the preamble to this document. I think we've finalized the 15 points, and those we've been batting around literally for, I think, a year and 9 months now. I think we've gotten that under control. The whole middle part of the document are pieces of state programs that Mike Liddon has pasted together for us. And what I did is we had batted around was sort of the, goals or mission statement in the purpose, which is the first part of it. And I basically just edited that to make it more general, to sort of embrace the 15 points that we had below. So that's basically where it's at. So most of this document is, except for the first paragraph and the very last section, number 3, objectives in preserving open space, all of that is just simply copied from state programs or language or rating systems for water resources and open space, etc. I don't know if we want to share it or if everyone can see it.
Can everyone look at that? Has everyone had a chance to look at it? I mean, there's a change from last time we were talking about passive and active recreation and sort of almost making them antagonistic to each other. This eliminates all that and just puts out what we really wanted, why we want to preserve open space, which are listed in the 14 points in the criteria. So I think it's an excellent change to the document. It really does state what we are looking for acquisition.
Yeah, and the whole active, passive, and all the different water things that are important, those are all listed more specifically in the 15 points. So poor Tom Hazel, I sent him 4 versions because I was like, okay, I changed this on this one because he said, don't use track changes. So I tried to make it clear, and this is what it ended up as.
Any comments from anyone?
I just want to thank Susan for doing that work.
Yes.
Yeah, two things. One, I apologize for not showing up at the last get together, so feel bad about that. But the second question, or the second point was, does it dovetail pretty well into the POCD as appropriate? Just as really a question for my edification.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely.
So no concerns. But do you think we're ready to pass this one forward? Because we've been working on this one for a while. We'd love to get this one off the agenda.
If we wait till January, it'll be too, Marjorie, come on.
No. Let's so are we ready now? Who we're going to be passing this on to? I've even forgotten who this is going on to. This is going on to the Board of Selectmen, or who?
I believe the Board of Selectmen.
All right, good. So shall we take the leap and ask for a motion to accept this and pass this on to the Board of Selectmen? Who'd like to make a motion for that?
I think Susan should.
Yes, I think so. Good going. All right, Susan, and then who would like to second?
Yeah, Bill Rice will second.
Thank you, Bill. All right, any discussion, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, let's vote. All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those, any opposed? Excellent. We have completed a task. Well done. Thank you, Susan. All right, we're doing well. Okay, and I think that is the last item on our agenda. So is it, unless anyone has something else to say?
You know me, I have a word at the end.
All
I
right.
just wanted to say a deep gratitude to the subcommittee that did all the hard work and the staff input. I'm very grateful, and I wish to say thank you.
Well done. All right, thank you, Helen. And the next item is the motion to adjourn. So who would like to go for that one?
I'll make that motion.
Kelly, excellent. All right, and who'd
I
like
do
to
that
second?
well.
All right, who's seconding?
I'll second.
Oh, good, Helen. All right, and all in favor.
Aye.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.